Now, one of the legends of Indian cinema, Dilip Kumar, has died at the age of 98. The winner of more awards than any other Indian actor, Kumar's been praised for the range of his roles. Born Muhammad Yusuf Khan, Kumar first found work in the industry as a scriptwriter, but moved in front of the cameras in 1944. Critical success came rapidly, with films like Didar, meaning The Sight, in 1951, Devdas in 1955, and Mughal-e-Azam, which became one of the biggest box office hits in Bollywood. Well, I'm joined now by Asim Chhabra, who's an author of several biographies of Bollywood stars and director of the New York Indian Film Festival. Thank you very much, Asim, for joining us here on the programme. I know he was 98, but he is now such a huge loss to the Indian film fraternity, as well as India in general.
Yeah, he had been unwell for a very long time, and also Dilip Kumar, I think his last film was released like in the late 1990s, which probably did not do well. So in fact, his last hit was probably in the early 1990s. So he had obviously not been acting for a very long time, but he was such a legendary figure. And until about 5-6 years ago, when he was not well, before that, his health was more or less fine. He was constantly invited to film events, to awards and things like that. And the impact that he had on the film industry over the decades. I mean, Amitabh Bachchan, who's one of the most popular Indian actors, and Shah Rukh Khan, who became very popular in the 90s and 2000s, they both sort of secretly desired having a bit of Dilip Kumar in them. So the kind of admirers that Dilip Kumar had, because of the work he did, the roles he played. Indian cinema, Hindi cinema, especially in the 40s and 50s, and even after that, tend to be very melodramatic, very over-the-top sort of acting. And one of the Dilip Kumar's greatest contributions was that he underplayed his roles. He brought a sort of a nuanced sort of acting style, which had not been experienced before. A lot of the other actors were coming from theatre background, for instance, so they were overplaying as if there was an audience sitting in front of them.
But actually, he also had a melancholy about him, didn't he?
So I don't know about his personal life.
In his acting. I mean, it was always a tragic lover.
Yes, so he was cast as a tragic lover, and he did very well there, and that took him places. And but it was always a very quiet kind of tragedy. It was, there's a film called Devdas, which was released in 1955, based on a classic Indian novel, and it's been made into films many times after that also. But it was that quiet tragedy of his, where he would be drinking and slowly sort of becoming melancholic, really, which is what he was really respected for. And as an audience member, I was very young then, because his performances belonged to my parents' generation. And then when I was a teenager, I was watching him in some films also. His roles, his characters stayed with you. And when we would think about those films, we would think about Dilip Kumar.
Indeed, and it's not just Prime Minister Modi talking about his sadness and people within India. We've also had Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, tweet his sadness, because, of course, Dilip Kumar was born in what's known as Peshawar today, and that was before partition in 1944.
Right, and he got one of the, he won many awards in India, many awards from the Indian government, but he got one of the highest honors from the Pakistani government also. Indian cinema, even though India and Pakistan became two separate countries in 1947, but Indian popular cinema, the Hindi language cinema, which we would sometimes also call Bollywood, has stayed very popular in Pakistan. The language, the cultures are so similar. And Dilip Kumar, given the fact that he was obviously born Muslim, so he was a Muslim man, although he had taken a Hindu name, was very, very popular in Pakistan for many of those reasons.
Indeed, just very briefly, tell us a little bit more about his legacy, because as you say, big stars today like Shah Rukh Khan, Amitabh Bachchan looked to him and were really admired his work.
I would say Dilip Kumar was our Laurence Olivier. Dilip Kumar was our Gregory Peck. It was that kind of stature he had, and that kind of heft he has as an actor. It was not just the fact that, the people who consider him to be that senior an actor. He was so brilliant in his performances. Laurence Olivier could never go wrong in any performance. And that was Dilip Kumar also. I mean, he started doing comedy much later, and various kind of other roles. But he was really, really revered and respected across the board by practically everybody in the film industry and beyond, of course, the fans. And as I said, in India and Pakistan and the diaspora, I mean, the South Asians across the world who really, really must be feeling his loss today.
Very much so. Assam Chabra, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme.